were a student-run newscast. We just had been taping at that point. We formed in late '97, so we only had a few months under our belt. We decided that day, okay, we got a heads up here. We knew this was coming. Let's go ahead and try to do this live and see what happens. Now, we're a closed circuit with an option that WKOU could retransmit if they wanted to, but we want to do this for the students. And that's mainly who we serve, as students, obviously. But we were all students running this student-run meteorology program for broadcasting, which had never happened before in Western's history. About 2 o'clock, that's when the first cells began to pop. We started getting the first warnings, and they were tornado warnings that were coming out just west of Warren County and Bowling Green. That's when the energy level really ramped up. Like, okay, this is coming our way. But based on the reports we were getting from the Weather Service here in Louisville, we knew the general path this was heading, and it was heading right into Warren County. When the warning came out, we started hearing the wind outside. We could hear the air raid sirens, the cows, they call them down there. The cows were going off on the campus, so we knew that. And of course, anytime anyone hears the air raid sirens, that really gets your energy level going up and the nerves too. We could hear the wind. We could hear, at the time, what we thought was just heavy rainfall, which it was, but it was also very large hail. And when it was students that were coming in to say, hey, we're seeing hailstones that are massive, glass is breaking everywhere. We don't know exactly what that means as far as visually. We just knew it was large hail, but exactly how large we didn't know until we got our camera for the first time when it was safe to do so to shoot out the opening of the door. It was a garage door of our studio. We were able to shoot the hail, and the hail had already melted down. This was a good 30 minutes had passed, and it melted down the golf ball size. So we knew that we were dealing with some large hail. And we, of course, came to find out later it was basically softball size that was coming down, in which I'd never seen that before in my life. But it was the type of hail that was being described as that it fell, but it really did a thud. And it just shattered things, didn't have much of a bounce to it. And that was just hard to imagine. And when the storm passed, we were all trying to figure out what we needed to shoot video-wise. We could see there was flooding on the campus, but we didn't know how bad that part was just yet. But we certainly saw the hail. And the first thing I thought of, I just bought my pretty blue Ford Ranger 2 weeks before this. It better still be there, for one, and secondly, I hope it's not damaged. Unfortunately, it was damaged, had no windshield. I had all these dents, looked like dimples everywhere, but I wasn't alone. Every single car in the parking lot was damaged. The hail itself did a lot of damage. It ripped off siding in town. We were seeing the images of that. We knew this was going to be costly. The campus was without power. Our engineers came running in at one point during our coverage. It was like, hey, we've taken on damage from the hail. So that means the water part was becoming a problem. It was funneling down the walls of the building and getting down to the generator, which was on our level, the studio level. And so we were being told, we've got a limited amount of time, and the switch is going to kick because it will detect the water, and we're done. We're off the air. We didn't realize that just down the road, off of Russellville Road, that WBKO was getting hit. And of course, they have windows in their newsroom. So the hailstones were coming right through their windows. They were seeking shelter. They were in a crisis mode themselves. So we were basically the only ones that were really on for the students at that point, broadcasting the information that we were getting at that time about the damage, the power outages, and where we're going with flooding. So it was kind of surreal to know all that later on. The second piece of it was the flooding, because we have a parking lot on campus that is distant. So if you were late getting to school, late getting back on campus, you were stuck in that lot. That was pretty much the last resort lot. And everyone hated that because no one wanted to carry all their books across all these crosswalks and get all the way back into campus. We named that lot Egypt Lot, or we didn't name it. It was named Egypt Lot. But Egypt Lot was, kind of its signature lot on the campus. But to imagine that we were hearing that water had consumed it, we were thinking, okay, maybe it's like a few inches of water flooded, something like that. No, the entire parking lot was underwater to the point where every single car, and this holds roughly 80 cars, the only thing you could see were just the tips of the antennas of the cars. And it was hard to think about how many vehicles are underwater. And of course, secondly, you want to get your car out of something like that, but you're told basically the only way you're going to get out there is by boat. And it was too dangerous for us to even get out there by boat at that point. There's a viaduct that says "Welcome to Western" that is off of Russellville Road near the campus, students were actually jumping off of that and doing dives into the water, not realizing there was actually a semi that was underneath all of that because the water was so deep. I mean, it was really dangerous stuff, but no one knew the extent of how bad this was until we saw those kind of images.
One word comes to mind when referring to 1998 April 16th severe weather, and that is epic. The crazy thing is, knew the severe weather was coming, but I missed it all. I was sitting there watching it, tracking it that day, but I had to get to my hometown in northern Kentucky, and I left about an hour before the cell came out of Hopkinsville towards Bowling Green. Thankfully, I wasn't there because who knows what could have happened, but hearing all of the stories from students at WKU, all the storm members that were on the storm team down at WKU and residents in the area really helped shape me. It made me more intelligent to help tell stories and take in stories from weather reporting. And it's going to be remembered forever because of the hail and the flooding that was in Bowling Green. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I hope I never see anything like it again because baseball-sized hail, widespread throughout the town, it essentially shredded every single building. It looked like machine gun fire went through every single structure in and around Bowling Green. In the way that town's laid out in the campus with the topography, flooding is such a big deal, but this particular day, one of the worst ever, and who could forget the tornado that went through downtown Nashville that day? That's one that will stick in my mind, we'll never forget.
Boy, I remember April 16th, 98 very fondly. I was working with Warren County Emergency Management at the time, and after my morning shift, we were working on securing FEMA funds to purchase a radar for Warren County because we felt like there was a bit of a hole between Louisville and Nashville's NexRad locations. And so we were trying to work on something that we could get funding for to help better, warn the community. And so I remember being at the Warren County Emergency Management Office and hearing a lot of activity through the weather radio at the time. And then that office started getting phone calls of large hail. I mean, very destructive, large hail. And people were saying, we've got baseball size hail out here. Somebody said it looks as big as oranges or grapefruits. And we're just like, and at that time, we didn't have the near real time radar information that we do now. So an image would come in every few minutes after it completed its scan, and we would have to wait on the Nashville NexRad to give us a new scan to see what we're looking at. And what I remember looking at was this huge blob coming out of Logan County, moving into Warren County. And it had all the classic signs of large hail, destructive winds, tornado, flooding rains. It had all of that. But when we started receiving phone calls about this just ginormous hail, we were like, is this right? But then when the calls kept coming in, people were saying, my windows have been knocked out. My car looks like somebody's taken a ball peen hammer and just gone at it. But then when that storm reached Bowling Green, it was pretty incredible. At that time, we saw funnel clouds, we saw the hail, and the hail that came down started busting out windows around us, started busting out our car windows, and it left with a fog. I can just remember, well, it was more like steam. It was more like a fog that just steam just came up because the ice was so cold and so big. And it had been a really warm, humid, rainy day, stormy day. And that one cell that traveled from Logan County into Warren County, I don't think I've ever seen anything since then pack that kind of a punch. It brought everything. And the thing is that when the hail fell, it was so large that it started clogging up the drain. So when it started raining, the water had nowhere to run off. And so we had flooding. And then the resultant tornadoes that came after that, that went into Barron County and beyond, it was just like, is the sky falling? Because it felt and looked like that is what exactly was happening. And so for that reason, I will never, ever forget April 16th of 98.
April 16th, 1998, even today ranks right up there with one of the craziest weather days that I remember. Now, this is a little odd. Of course, a lot of people talk about how large the hailstones were and how much damage there was. But one thing that really stuck out to me about the hailstorm in Bowling Green in 1998 was how loud it was. We were sitting outside as the tornado warning was issued, and you could hear that storm coming in. And I can remember telling someone later on that it sounded like the old snow on a television. We don't see that too much in broadcast media anymore, but the sound of it was like the snow, the static as it was coming in. Just a wild, wild day. In addition to that, yes, the hail was large. Something else was the incredible amount of rain that came down. The stairs on campus literally looked like waterfalls. I don't remember the exact numbers. You guys probably know, but I believe it was over 5 inches of rain in just a really short amount of time. But what a wild day, something that is still ingrained in my mind after seeing years of all types of weather. One I will never forget.